is the last. Oh yes, yes, forgot about that. The reason I wanted to talk about figures is that over the last couple of years we've had a lot of things happening in New Zealand and what have you, with well, around the world, and I'm feeling our figure standard is starting to drop a little bit. And I just wanted to go back over the basics of figures to remind people of what we as judges are looking for, and to try and make sure that we get these things a little bit better so that we improve what we're doing. We've always been quite strong on figures, and I want us to stay that way. I don't want us to lose any ground on where we've always been. So the first question I asked, which a couple of you have answered correctly, is what's the most important thing with figures? It's pretty simple. It's edges. Yes, you don't do anything in figures without edges. The most important part of it is a pure edge. Of course, we're looking for a pure edge. So I'm going to go through certain areas of figures bit by bit. I've got about 30 minutes, which is not long, so I'm only going to brush through the basics of the parts of the figures. And if you have any comments or any questions, please just ask as we go. Chuck a little comment in there or whatever, and I'll try and help you out as best I can. Okay, so as I said, the first thing is it's the edges. Now, when we're judging, we're looking for a pure edge, and a pure edge means, as you probably all know, there's no constant movement of the skating foot, that it's just holding that edge for the entire time without subcurving and what have you. Now, when we are judging those edges on the figure, if the skater is not perfectly on the line, that can be okay if they're holding a pure edge. But if they're constantly going on and off the line, changing their weight on their skate all the time, that's worse than someone who goes around the outside of the circle and stays on the outside for the entire way, as long as it's not too far away, of course. So just, what we're after is that pure edge. So a lot of work needs to be done to make sure that's what we're doing with our edges. Okay, and we want to see it consistent. Also with figures, with those edges is flow. Okay, we want to have some flow with the figures. So when the skater starts, we want to see movement around the thing. We don't want people to go really slow. And I know that beginner skaters are going to, but they've got to make sure we've got to get up so that we're actually moving at a reasonable pace, so that we get some rhythm. So that pace and rhythm all works together to make the figures look much nicer to watch, much nicer to judge. So then we move on to the turn side of it. How do you do a turn? You do it with edges. Okay, so if you're going into a forward outside 3 turn, you're tightening your edge as you go into the cusp of the turn, and then you do the turn, and then you've got a tight edge coming out, and then you're back and you're continuing on that edge, but obviously not as tight. We're looking for that edge. If it's an outside forward 3 turn, it's outside forward. It goes a tight outside forward for the cusp of the turn. When they've turned, they're on a back inside, and that back inside is going to be tight, and then it's going to flatten out to be on the edge. And we don't want to see outsides. We don't on that back part. It's all about being on the correct edge. So when you're doing your turn, you're going from edge to edge, and they're the correct edge. A lot of turns we see have a lot of subcurves afterwards as well. So that's what happens with the lack of control on the turns. Where do we do our turns? Okay, is that important? Yes, it is. Okay, on a normal figure, not normal figure, any figure, the turns are normally done on the long axis, unless it's a double 3. Okay, but if it's on the long axis, your cusp going into the turn is just before the turn, and the cusp coming out is just after the long axis. So it's important to get that in the correct place. At the moment, we're having a lot of turns that are actually either late or early, and they're not actually in the correct position. If you have a look at the World Skate Manual, the figure manual on page 10 and 11, it shows you how important the important parts of the figure, and you'll see in that document there that the most important part is right on the axis. It's not a little bit after, it's not a little bit before, it's right on the axis. So it's important that those turns are executed in the correct place. All right. double threes, same thing. But in this case, it's the 10 and 2, or you can do the degrees or whatever, but it's the same place. It's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 for a double three. And that positioning of those turns is still very important. That was one of the biggest things I noticed is the amount of double threes that were not in the correct place. The first one might be in the correct place, then the second turn is late, or in some cases they do it early because they've lost a little bit of loss of balance. It's important to get that correct. It's about having the figure symmetrical, so that the turns are in the same place on both sides and at both ends. All right. You all should know, obviously, your 3 turns are a 1 skate length for the cusp, and all the rest are half a skate length. That also relates to the distance into the circle for the cusp and out of it as well. I think it's for a 3 turn, it's 1.5 skate lengths. For all the rest of the turns, it's 1 skate length in, 1 skate length out. So what we do see a lot of is 1 skate length in and 2 or 3 on the way out, because they're trying to get the edge back. But yeah, so that's got to work on to try and get that accurate. But placements of turns is important. You double threes especially, we go up and down the figure to make sure we're standing in the right position to get the correct view, to see that you are doing it in the correct position. So if you're not, we're going to see it, and we will have to adjust your mark accordingly. All right, and we're trying to give you the best mark we can. So give us the best figure you can, so we can give you the best mark. If you know what I mean. All right. Moving on, we've got strikes and takeoffs. Now, your strikes and takeoffs are they're done within a box. You would have heard about the strike box. That box is a small area which is on the long axis. It's not past the long axis. It's not before the long axis. It's on the long axis. So make sure all your strikes are done and takeoffs in that strike box. A lot of cases, people are doing the takeoffs late. They're coming through the strike box and then doing the takeoffs. If you read the manual once again, the WorldSkate manual, it'll actually say there, when you do your initial strike, your pushing foot does not cross the main axis on the floor. The main axis. Same in your takeoffs during the figures, that your pushing foot doesn't actually cross the axis. Only, and you put your other foot down for your takeoffs. A lot of takeoffs we've got, especially the beginner skaters, they're too slow. They need to speed up their takeoffs so they're short and nice and neat. Got a question there. Could please explain depth of turn? I think I just did that with the halves and the holes. So hopefully that covers what you're after there. The biggest thing, especially with the younger skaters, is because they are a lot slower with their takeoffs, they become a 2-foot takeoff, which is actually where obviously the marks are going to come down with a 2-foot takeoff. We want to see those a little bit snappy, a little bit quicker. And yes, they've got to practice and what have you. So, but yeah, it takes a bit of time. Just a question again about the 3 turn. If you read the manual, you're allowed 1.5 skate lengths on the figure to go into the turn, and 1.5 skate lengths coming out. But all other turns are only 1 skate length, because the 3 turn figure is got a 1 skate length cusp. So you need a little bit more time to get into it. Obviously, that's why that's like that. Whereas all the rest of the turns,
you're talking about the entry edge and the exit edge, Tony, aren't you, with that?
That's correct, yes. I'm moving on, and I'm rushing through this, but it's all about timing. Change of edge. It's from one edge to another, obviously. What we do see a lot of is multiple edge changes during the change of edge, and there should be one movement. We see some skaters use their free leg to steer through the change of edge. That's actually not okay. it might help the skater, but actually it's a deterrent because of the fact that they are actually there's more than one movement. A change of edge is one movement. You're on one edge, you're on the other edge. That's it. That's all we should see, and that's what we're looking for. And once again, that has to be on the long axis. It's not anywhere else. It's on the long axis, and that change of edge has got to be there. One movement is what I want to see. I don't want to see multiple movements. If I see multiple movements, then you're not changing from one edge to another. You're doing a whole lot of other stuff as well in the middle, and that stands out when you're judging. You're looking at them. If you see one movement and you see that they've taken the edge, both one edge to the other, the change of edge is correct, and you can tell. It's reasonably straightforward to see once you get used to seeing it. Don't think there's much else to cover there. Change of edge. We want to see it in the right place, and we want to see it from one edge to the other. Okay. Moving on I'll go on to loops now quickly. I've got I've got 15 minutes. I've actually gone a little bit faster than I thought, but that's all right. Loops can take a little bit longer. What we're looking for with loops, it's still the same thing. It's an edge. It's an edge in, it's an edge all the way through and out again. And we're looking for the shape of the loop. If you're going forwards, we're watching your heel wheels. If you're going backwards, we're watching your toe wheels for the tracing on the loop. The biggest problems we have, there's lots. Loops are difficult. And we all know that. But we're looking for that correct shape of the loop. We're looking for flow, as in it goes into the loop, around and back out again without stopping. Stopping on a loop is a major fault. So we don't want to be seeing that sort of thing. We want to see it flowing, one movement. So you've got to have control of what you're doing there. You see all sorts of different loops. We saw some interesting ones at Oceanas. We see interesting ones everywhere, but yeah, it's the shape coming in is important, and you tighten your edge. When you do the actual top of the loop, you must have 3 wheels on the floor at all times, and then you come out again. There's the height of the free leg is just a question there. Does the height of the free leg matter? It doesn't matter. What it does matter is that it's coming through at the right timing, and that it doesn't deter the flow of the circle. I'm not going to tell you how to do a loop, but I'm telling you what I'm looking for. I'm looking for a controlled loop. When they bring the free leg through, it should be coming through on the exit to help them come out of the loop. But the height of it and all that sort of thing, that's entirely up to the skater. As long as they're doing the right shape and what have you, that's what I'm looking for. And always remember that what you do at one end, you should be doing exactly the same at the other end. Because if you're doing something different at the other end, then you haven't got a balanced figure. So to try and keep it balanced as well. Yeah, so those are the main things I'm looking for in a loop: is flow, control, and no stopping. So the moment you stop, well, some skaters even go backwards sometimes. You actually, yeah, it's the flow's gone. The loop's actually, it's not a loop anymore. Okay. On your loop figures, your tracing in between is important too. Some people, they seem to concentrate really hard on the loop, but the change of edge on a serpentine loop or something like that is non-existent. And same on the paragraph loops. That's all important as well. We're looking for all of that. So it is important that you are watching all aspects of the figure. Yeah. That's most of what I have now. Is there anyone, Lee, would you have any input for figures? There's so much I could talk about. I could talk for hours. It would be so much easier being on a skating rink, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll go back to the free leg. I had that down as notes to talk about, just with its movement and height. except for the forward outside 3 turn, there's no prescribed movement of the free leg. In the forward outside 3 turn, the free leg must not pass through before the turn is done. That's the only thing that's stipulated and can't happen. And as Tony was saying, if you have your free leg low for a forward turn, and then when you do the next half of your figure going backwards and the foot's high, it's not creating a nice balance. And also the way the free leg moves, it shouldn't be a distraction for a judge. If it's creating a distraction, that means I'm not concentrating on all the figure, because whatever odd movement is happening, it is not making a nice looking figure, and it will also affect the look of the flow, and such things like that. So over the years we've had some pretty interesting arms and leg positions. As I say, there's only one that's stated that you can't do, but I would have a video of yourself and just see if something is looking nice or not, because you don't always have your coach standing on the side keeping an eye on what you're up to. And it's very easy, if you're trying to correct the figure, to try and do it through arms and legs, which just creates more issues. Yeah. So that was, yes, and body lines are important.
Yep, very much so. Thank you, Lee. The only other thing I'll just reiterate there again is your balance and of your figure. If you move your free leg from front to back at a certain point at one end, do it the same at the other end. The whole way through your figure, everything should be balanced. I remember doing a seminar down in Tokoroa years ago, and the skater that actually went out there and did the demonstration did a completely different leg movement at each end, and that was brought up, and it was interesting to see people did bring it up, and then a lot of people didn't realize that was important, but it is, because we're looking for a balanced figure. So it does all add up in everything you're doing. All right. There was something else I'll go back on. Oh yes, the strikes. Go back to the strikes. When a skater comes out there to start to do their first figure, it's really important that they actually have their foot pointing in the correct direction. Because when they go to do that strike, if it's not pointing in the correct direction, they're not going to go in the correct direction. And the amount of times I see that, it's like a little bit frustrating, because you've got to, come on, get it in the right place. You can see where you're going to go. So when you get out there for your strike, first thing you're going to do is go straight ahead on that edge. So what happens is they come out and they put their foot this way and go on that edge, and already they're off the line. They're not in the right place. So placement of that right from the word go. Try and make sure that you get your skaters to set up correctly, set up to do the first edge from the right position, which is on the major axis, striking straight out and onto that first edge. Right. Can't think of too many other things. There's, as I say, I could spend a whole day on a skating rink with skaters going over bits and pieces. And it's a lot easier in that sort of environment. This is a very difficult environment. But yeah, is there any more questions at all? I've actually got through it a lot faster than I thought I would. And I've just, as I said at the beginning, I've only covered the basics. I've only run over the top. These are the things that we're seeing. We're seeing turns that are not, we've always seen turns that don't have the correct edges in and out. That's what we're working on. Positioning of the turns is very important, especially on the double threes. Lately, there's a lot of double threes at nationals that they were not in the right positions. And we're deducting for that. Although this judged under the white system, it's very similar to roll out in a way, is that we've got things that we're adding on for, we've got things we're taking away with. and that's all done in our heads, and it's constant. From the moment the skater starts, I've made myself a mark, and I'm working that mark all the way through to when that skater finishes. So for every little error they make, I'm deducting a little bit. For every good patch they make, I'm adding on to it, and I want to add on all the time, but unfortunately we have to do that. It takes stuff off as well. So we're trying to eliminate these little things: placement of turns, the accuracy of the turns, the edge running. That's all going to add up to getting a better score for your figures. Strikes and takeoffs in the right position on the major axis. I couldn't get over even some of our top skaters, the takeoffs in between the figures, they were just late. They were after the major axis instead of being on the major axis. So we want to try and tidy these things up and get them working. All right. Does anyone else have any questions at all? Please.
I know, I'm sure Kylie will agree with us. When you're starting to train on your figures, you really do, I don't know, how long would you say, Kylie? 10 minutes at least, just doing outside, inside circles. Nothing else, no turns, no nothing. You're just training the main circle before you even think about putting some turns in.
Totally, yeah. I think what you guys are looking for is edges, but we as coaches have to work on like body position and placement, and use, for the skaters so that they can understand where things have got to be. Takeoffs to me are just so important, getting them in the right place, and getting them on the short axis, long axis, within the strike box. Yeah, it's just takeoffs. I think if once you have a takeoff, you can do any figure. Yeah, but yeah, working on the figure 1, 2, 3, and 4 is really important. Yeah.
Do it as you warm up every time. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and thank you, Kylie. That's good information as well. Like I said, I'm not a coach, but I know what I'm looking for as a judge, and hopefully between all of us, we can sort these things out and improve what we're doing. As I say, we've always been good at figures, and let's keep it there, because we always want to go forward and be as strong as we can. And as you know, there's some of our skaters are off to the World Figure Champs up in Europe, and I'm sure they'll do really well up there. All right. If there's no more questions or no more advice from Lee.
No, I think we've done most bits.
Yeah. Now, as I said, it's a very quick covering of it. I've only just brushed the surface. There's so much more to it. This is a little bit of what we're looking for as judges. We're always here to ask questions, so you're always welcome to ask questions of us. Obviously not before a competition or during a competition, but in the next few months when we're not doing competitions, please come and ask, and we're always trying to help. The other side of it is we do medal tests, and in a medal test, we are expecting those things to be right. If you don't have it in the right place, if you don't have your takeoffs in the right place and your turns in the right place, you won't be able to pass, unfortunately. So we want to get that right as well, so that it makes it easier for everyone to pass tests. I love coming to do a test where a skater goes out there and shows me they can do the figure, and I can just say, yes, no problems, you can do the figure. So yeah, so these things are important, and it matters for the whole lot of figure skating right across the board. All right. Okay. If no one has anything else, I thank you all very much for tuning up. Hopefully I've given you a little bit of insight of what we're looking for, and you can go away and work on it and come back, and I can see a big improvement next time. I'm always looking forward to it, and I love seeing improvement. It's great to see. All right. Thank you very much.